Hello everyone, this is Alex or RCG Blade, and today I'm just going to make a very quick brief tutorial on the world settings in Nuclear Nightmare. So I have seen a couple of people in the community really not understanding these settings, or just kind of, maybe they're used to joining matches and not hosting, so they're not super familiar. So I figured I would make this video to kind of explain all of that, go over it a little bit, and make it a little bit more understandable. So first off, you access them by pressing Start Game, and then clicking the World Settings button right there. And I'm just going to explain them one by one. So starting off, Friendly Fire, very self-explanatory. If this is checked, like that, you got the green square with the check mark. If that is checked, that means that you are able to damage other players using weaponry, like pickaxes, guns, flamethrowers, stuff like that. If you don't have this toggled, but you still have tripwires, a teammate or you could trigger a tripwire that kills another teammate. This setting just makes sure that you cannot shoot them. Now, enemy daytime spawns. If this option has the green square, it's got the check mark, that means that just like it would on Nightmare difficulty, which we'll get to, the enemies can spawn during the daytime. Any other game mode than Nightmare, if this is not enabled, that means that from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 1800, you will not have any enemies spawning in during the daytime. So if you don't want that, disable it. If you don't want to deal with the one-hit kills from the Nightmare difficulty, but you still want to have them spawning in, you can play hard and enable that setting. Now the next two are related. You have spawn playable enemy after every death. So if this is enabled, when a player dies, they will respawn into the player-controlled enemy. Normally this happens under specific circumstances, but you can force it to happen with this setting. Or alternatively, if you never want to have that happen, even under the special circumstances, you click that, have the green square with the check mark, and this will now make it so you will never have a player die and then respawn as a playable enemy. If you're concerned about things like griefing or trolling, stuff like that, I would make sure you have this one check marked. Moving on, we have Airborne Infections. Now this one there's a lot of confusion about, and I promise you, despite what you may believe, what I am about to say is 100% how this works. So you can take me at my word, this is what Airborne Infection does. Now with Airborne Infections enabled, when an enemy would lock onto your character, as in the enemy is spawned into the world, it takes note of your character, whether you're making noise or you're just running in the open. If it locks on, if it detects your character and decides, hey, I'm going to pursue that character, the game rolls a probability chance to see if you are now infected. That is how the Airborne Infection works. That's how it transmits. So, when an enemy locks onto your character, even if you don't see them, even if you're on your snowmobile and that enemy ends up despawning because you're so far away, if it locks onto you once, that's all it could take, and theoretically you could be infected. So if you are playing with Airborne Infections on, first off, best of luck. And second of all, make sure you are testing yourself often and you keep a syringe, because it's going to be a very tough time. The next setting is Disable Reinforcements. Super simple again. Recently the game added the ability to respawn your teammates through reinforcing. If you don't want that mechanic, if you want it to be an Iron Man sort of experience where you have one life, and if you die, that's that, you would tick that and that would remove the reinforcements feature. Disable Worm. If you tick this option, worms will not spawn. It's pretty simple, and by worms we mean the giant worms that come out of the ground. Spawn Infection Masses. Now this is actually something that is not enabled by default, but will change your game up quite a bit. So if you enable Spawn Infection Masses, what will happen is there will be these almost bushes of tentacles on the ground, and they'll make a faint noise. They don't move around as much as the tentacles from when there's a monster nearby. Those are completely different. But what the infection masses will do is, if you stand too close to them or in them for too long, you will become infected more than likely. And that has some use if you're playing on Nightmare but you want to do Research Center. You have to have infection masses enabled, or you have to get lucky with a leech. But you're also just kind of making it so you have to be a bit more mindful of your step. It's a fun modifier to turn on. I personally enjoy it, but if you don't want to deal with those, just leave it unchecked. Next up, we have Disable Tripmines. Again, a super simple one. If you click that box and get the green check mark, there will no longer be Tripmines. They will spawn into the world, but none of them will ever be powered on, so you'll never be able to set them off. Pretty simple. Disable infection notifications. Now what this one will do is, say you find a testing kit and you test your blood. In a normal match, if this is not ticked, it'll have a little banner saying blank is not infected or blank is infected. That means that your whole team is now able to know if that person was checked, what their status was. So if you click that and enable this function where you get rid of the infection notifications, only the person who is there, say if they don't have a walkie-talkie, will know that they are infected because they will see the infected animation. But no longer on the screen will there be that little message stating that someone is either infected or not infected. The next one, start with radios. Again, super simple. The last two are really basic. If you enable start with radios, everyone will have a walkie-talkie in their inventory, which they can use to communicate with people across the map. If you don't click that, there will not be the walkie-talkies in everyone's inventory. Disable leeches. Much like disable worm, if you check disable leeches, the leeches that spawn in-game in the snow will no longer spawn in, so you won't have to worry about those little jump scares where you're just running around trying to complete your classified materials objective and suddenly you're getting wrangled on the ground by a big old snake looking fella. You disable that by enabling that. If you have the green check mark, that means they are disabled. They will no longer spawn in. Super basic. Now lobby time. Up to 12 minutes. Shortest time is 2 minutes. What this will do is it will determine how long your pre-game lobby will be up for people to join in. So if you're trying to get as many people in, I recommend setting it to 12 minutes and just letting it run its time. Hopefully some people will find it from the server list. Gives you time to invite some friends. But if you're maybe trying to start earlier, I guess you could just do 2 or even 4 minutes, and that way you're still giving it some time to find players, but you're not waiting almost 15 minutes to start your game. Entirely up to you. Difficulty. You've got easy, normal, hard, and nightmare. Now you'll notice when I switch to nightmare, enemy daytime spawns turns gray. That's because it is enabled by default and cannot be changed when you are playing on nightmare mode. On hard and every other difficulty, you are able to determine whether or not you want the daytime spawns. The biggest difference between these difficulties, at least easy, normal, and hard, is enemies will have more health and they will do more damage. That's literally it. Nightmare difficulty, all of the full-size monsters will one-hit kill you, and they spawn during the daytime as well as the nighttime. The spawns are also increased. That's difficulty. Oh, and one final note about difficulty. Higher the difficulty you play, the larger your multiplier will be for getting the classified points. So when you complete an objective on Nightmare, you're going to get 100. When you complete it on Hard, you're going to get 75. Normal, I believe, is 50, and Easy is, I believe, 25 points per objective. Now we've got the classified minimum difficulty. This one, I think, is very misunderstood, and I'm going to explain it for you. Easiest explanation I can offer is it is the setting that dictates how many classified material objectives you have to complete before you can call in the heli to evac. So on Easy, this is 2. On Normal, this is 4. On Hard, this is 6. And on Nightmare, that is 8. So again, this is determining how many objectives you have to complete before you are able to call in the evac heli. You have to uplink the satellite and then complete the amount of objectives as dictated by this difficulty. I personally play with Easy because as a solo player, I don't necessarily want to spend an hour every match trying to go for the gauntlet, get all of the freaking, objectives done. It can be a bit of a pain. So by having the option to extract at 2, I normally run at least 4 or 6, but knowing that if things go south and I need to get out, I'm able to and get a little bit of extra points, I personally think that that's worthwhile. Now the night-day cycle speed, you have long, normal, and fast. I do not know the exact times. For each cycle, but I prefer to play on long. The daytime in this game starts at 6 a.m. and the nighttime begins at 6 p.m. or 1800 hours. When you are playing on normal, Nighttime will happen pretty quick. It means that if you are a newer player, you're a little bit scared of going out at nighttime, you're going to be hunkering down a lot more. I personally prefer doing long. I find that the days feel a little bit more balanced out, and the night times are a little more tense because I'm not just able to watch the clock run up really quick until 6 a.m. So personal preference, I like long, but hey, if you want to customize your experience, you've got the options, and that's the important part. Last two settings we have here are item spawn probability, which can be frequent, normal, or scarce. Now with this one, depending on how many people you're playing with, you might want to adjust it. If you're doing maybe 2 players, you might want to put it on normal. If you want a really hardcore experience, put it on scarce. But if you have 8 players, I really would not touch this. I would keep it frequent because the loot is already going to be harder to split between 8 people. If you have the item spawns turned down, it's going to be very, very rare to find any kind of items, and those items are going to be 100% the difference between life or death in this game. The final setting is the Nuke Timer. You've got Off, which disables the entire Nuke Timer feature. Nightmare, which gives you a very short amount of time before the nuke goes off. Normal, which is your standard experience. And Easy, where you get, I believe, something like 76 minutes before the nuke goes off. So the range is like 7 minutes to, like maybe 14 or 8 minutes. I forget how short the Nuke Timer is for Nightmare, because I don't often use it. But again, just another way to customize your experience. If you want to have some kind of time threat so you're not just stuck in a match forever, I would recommend doing Easy. Otherwise, normal is a good time with more than 4 players. And Nightmare, I mean, unless you're doing some kind of a challenge, playing with Nightmare is going to be very, very difficult. And Off, if you just want to explore the map kind of at your own pace, get to learn things. Not a bad idea. Anyway, those are all of the world settings. So I hope that this helps you out. I hope that this kind of explains some of the stuff, because I know there's no way to read about what each of these settings does. So I'm hoping that this video can kind of help with that. So anyway, expect more videos to come out. I'm still working on some stuff. Got a trailer coming. Gonna have a couple more guide videos coming, so stay tuned for those. Thank you everybody for showing me so much love and support with this game, and congratulations on the team for getting just a brand new peak player count every single day. Seriously, it's been great, and I'm looking forward to the future of the game. So thank you all for checking out again, and as always, take care and have a good one. Peace.